the first time Hiram Voss called Martha Keene's boarding house a charity home. He did it loud enough for 6 paying guests to hear. He stood in her front room with his hat still on and one polished boot resting near the stove. Behind him, rain beat against the windows. A wagon driver waited by the door, holding a cracked wheel rim and looking anywhere but at Martha. "Men sleep here when they cannot afford better," Hiram said. "That is not an insult, Mrs. Keene. It is simply the place you have chosen." Martha folded the dishcloth once, then again. "Take off your hat," she said. The room went still. Hiram smiled, but the smile did not reach his eyes. He removed the hat. That was how Martha answered shame. Not with tears, not with shouting. She found one small thing that still belonged to her and held it. Red Willow was a rail town with one main street, 2 hotels, and enough gossip to fill both. Hiram owned the larger hotel near the depot. Its windows had lace curtains, its dining room had brass lamps, and its sign had been painted twice in 5 years. Martha's place stood 3 blocks farther west. The sign above her porch had faded until Keene House looked like Keene Ho, one shutter hung lower than the other. The front latch needed lifting before it would catch. But her beds were clean. Her coffee was strong. And no traveler had ever left her table hungry because his coins came up short. Hiram knew that last part. It bothered him. Some hurts are hard because they are new. Others are hard because they repeat an old thing you thought had finished with you. Have you ever been treated as useful but not worthy? Tell us in the comments. And subscribe if stories about quiet courage feel like home to you. Martha's husband had once praised her cooking in the same warm voice he used when asking where she kept the savings box. Then one morning, both he and the box were gone. That had been 9 years before. No letter came. No apology followed. Only bills, whispers, and the slow work of learning how to make one house earn enough to keep itself standing. People in Red Willow called her strong. Usually, they said it when they wanted something carried. Martha looked at Hiram across the front room. "Why are you here?" He turned the hat in his hands. "The westbound coach broke an axle by Miller's Bend. Passengers will be brought in before dark. My hotel is full. And you may get the rest." "The rest," Martha said. Hiram gave a small shrug. "The ones who do not mind plain rooms." The wagon driver near the door shifted his feet. Martha set the folded cloth beside the coffee pot. "Then you had better leave before they arrive. I need the chair you are standing beside." Hiram's mouth tightened. For a moment, she thought he might say something cruel enough to show his true shape. Instead, he placed his hat back on his head. "Pride does not mend a roof, Mrs. Keene." "No," Martha said, "but it keeps a man from owning the room just because he entered it." The wagon driver coughed into his fist. Hiram left. Martha waited until the door shut. Then she pressed one hand against the table. Not for long. Just long enough. By sundown, the broken coach had sent 8 wet passengers into town. 5 went to Hiram's hotel. 3 came to Martha. The first was a mother with a sleeping boy. The second was an old drummer who sold needles, buttons, and little cakes of rose soap. The third was a tall man carrying one leather case and a rolled coat. He paused under the porch roof and studied the faded sign as though he meant to read every missing letter. Rain ran from the brim of his hat. Mud covered his boots to the ankle. His face looked worn in a quiet way, not old, just used to distance. Martha opened the door wider. "You need a room." "Yes, ma'am." "How many nights?" He glanced toward the depot. The westbound train gave a low whistle somewhere beyond the dark houses. "Until Saturday." It was Tuesday. $2, Martha said, supper and breakfast included. He reached inside his coat and set $3 silver on the small table by the door. Martha looked at the extra coin. That is too much. $1 for the mud. Mud dries. Then for the trouble of cleaning it. I decide what trouble costs in my own house. Something almost like amusement moved across his face. He picked up the extra $1. Yes, ma'am. She gave him the room at the end of the upstairs hall. The roof leaked in the middle room, and the room beside the stairs belonged to the mother and child. He carried his own case without asking where to put it. At the foot of the stairs, the front door banged open behind him. The loose latch had failed again. The man turned, set down his case, and caught the door before the wind threw it against the wall. He looked at the latch, then he looked at Martha. May I? She did not understand at first. He touched one finger to the bent metal plate. May I fix it? Most men had already taken out a tool by then. Most men heard a broken thing as an invitation to prove something. Martha folded her arms. Are you a carpenter? Wheelwright. That is not the same. No, ma'am. Then why ask? Because it is your door. She studied him. The mother had gone upstairs. The drummer was warming his hands at the stove. Rain tapped steadily on the glass. Martha stepped aside. One try. The man opened his leather case. It held small tools wrapped in cloth, each one clean and fitted into its place. He removed a screwdriver, loosened the plate, and shifted it no more than the width of a grain of rice. Then he tightened it again. The door closed with one soft click. Martha tried it herself. No lifting, no hard pull, just shut and caught. What do I owe you? She asked. Nothing. I do not take unpaid work. I used your door. You paid for the room. He considered that, then call it payment for dry floors. The floors were already dry. Yes, ma'am. The old drummer laughed near the stove. Martha did not. But when she turned away, the corner of her mouth moved before she could stop it. His name was Elias Grant. She learned it at supper because the mother asked, not because Martha did. He sat at the far end of the table and ate slowly. He praised nothing. He complained about nothing. When the little boy dropped his spoon, Elias picked it up, wiped it clean, and returned it without making the child feel watched. Martha noticed that. She also noticed his hands, strong hands marked by black grease in the lines near the nails, the hands of a man who repaired what had to carry weight. After supper, the guests went upstairs one by one. Elias stayed behind long enough to carry the wash basin to the kitchen. Martha reached for it. I can manage. I know. He did not let go. That bothered her more than it should have. I said I can manage. Elias set the basin down at once. All right. No wounded pride, no joke, no show of kindness. He simply stepped back. Martha stood with both hands on the basin. 9 years earlier, her husband had told her she could manage while he took the money that made managing possible. Since then, every offer of help had sounded like the first board in a trap. Elias looked toward the coffee pot. Is there any left? She poured him a cup, black. Yes. He took it and sat at the small kitchen table instead of returning to the front room. Martha wiped the counter. Then she wiped it again. He did not fill the silence. That was rare. Outside, the rain softened. A train bell rang once at the depot. Elias reached into his coat and removed a folded square of stiff paper before searching another pocket for tobacco. The paper slipped from his hand and landed face up on the table. Martha saw the railroad stamp. Westbound. Saturday. Elias picked it up and folded it along the old crease. You already bought your ticket, she said. Yes. Going far? Far enough. He placed the ticket back inside his coat. Martha turned to the sink, though there was nothing left in it to wash. A man with a ticket was an honest thing, a man who said he was leaving and meant it. Still, when Elias thanked her for the coffee and went upstairs, Martha remained beside the dark window for a long time. The repaired latch held firm against the wind. For the first time in years, that did not comfort her. By Wednesday morning, the rain had passed, but the yard behind Keene house looked like brown soup. Martha found Elias at the woodpile before breakfast. He had rolled his sleeves to the elbow and was splitting kindling with a borrowed axe. She stood on the back step. "What are you doing?" He set another piece upright, making smaller wood. "I can see that." He brought the axe down. Martha crossed the yard, careful not to sink past the tops of her shoes. "Did I ask you to?" "No." "Then why are you doing it?" "The old pieces are too wide for your kitchen stove." "I know how wide my stove is." "Yes, ma'am." He set down the axe. That should have ended it. Instead, his calm made her feel as if she had kicked a chair that had done nothing wrong. She looked at the neat pile. Each piece fit the narrow firebox. "What do you charge for wood cutting?" she asked. "Breakfast." "Breakfast is included." "Then I am overpaid." She pressed her lips together. Elias waited. Martha picked up 3 pieces of kindling and carried them inside. "The eggs will be ready in 10 minutes." He followed with an armful, but stopped at the threshold until she moved aside. At breakfast, the little boy watched Elias spread apple butter on bread. "Are you a giant?" the boy asked. His mother closed her eyes. "Ben." Elias considered the question. "Not where I come from." "Where do you come from?" "Missouri." "Are they all giants there?" "Only the wheelwrights." Ben accepted this at once. Martha turned toward the stove, hiding a smile. After breakfast, Elias left with his leather case. He returned near noon with a strip of iron over one shoulder and grease across one sleeve. "Found work?" Martha asked. "At the livery. Their freight wagon has a bad rear wheel." "For 4 days." "For as long as they need me." He did not look toward the depot, but Martha did. From her kitchen, she could hear every whistle. "Saturday comes whether they need you or not," she said. Elias met her eyes. "Yes." Martha turned back to the bread dough. She pushed her knuckles into it harder than needed. He washed at the pump before coming inside. At supper, he ate 2 bowls of stew. Afterward, he carried his own dishes to the kitchen and stopped when Martha looked at him. "May I set these down?" She nodded. He placed them beside the basin. The shelf above the stove had leaned low on one side for 3 years. Elias looked at it. "No," she said. "I did not ask." "You were going to. Think about your wagon wheel." He lifted both hands and walked away. The next evening, Martha found a smooth wooden wedge on the kitchen table, cut to fit under the shelf bracket. She put it on Elias' dresser. He returned it to the kitchen table. She carried it upstairs again. After supper, it appeared beside the flour tin. She stared at it. Elias drank his coffee. The drummer looked from one of them to the other. "That little block appears well-traveled." "It has no business downstairs," Martha said. "It seems to disagree," Elias replied. She picked up the wedge. "You are a guest." "Yes." "Guests do not repair shelves." "Then put it under a chair." "My chairs do not rock." "The one by the parlor window does." Martha looked toward the front room. The drummer began laughing so hard he had to put down his cup. Martha should have been angry. Instead, she took the wedge to the leaning shelf, pushed it behind the bracket, and pressed the wood into place. The shelf lifted straight. Elias did not look pleased with himself. He did not even look at the shelf. He finished his coffee. That helped. On Thursday, the mother and her son left on the morning train. The drummer stayed because the road south was still muddy. 2 cattle buyers arrived before noon and took the upstairs room near the stairs. Keene house was nearly full. Martha changed sheets, stirred beans, mended a torn curtain, and counted coins at the kitchen table. The coins covered food and lamp oil. They did not cover the roof patch needed before the next hard rain. She counted again. At dusk, Hiram Voss entered without knocking. The repaired latch caught behind him with a clean click. He noticed. New door. Same door. Then someone has been useful. Martha closed the coin drawer. What do you want? I hear your wheelwright has become comfortable. He pays for his room. For now. He works at the livery. For now. Martha stood. You keep saying that as though time belongs to you. Hiram glanced toward the stairs. Saturday belongs to the railroad. That is what people are saying. People say many things when you feed them. His eyes narrowed, but his voice stayed mild. I only came to warn you. A lone man does not spend his evenings fixing a widow's house unless he expects payment of some kind. He fixed one latch. And a shelf. Martha went still. Hiram smiled then, a small, satisfied smile. The wedge had been in her kitchen less than a day, and already he knew. Red Willow watches, he said. You should remember that. I remember exactly what this town is. Do you? He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Your husband stayed until the money was gone. This one may stay until his train comes. The difference is only a few days. Martha's hand closed around the back of a chair. Hiram put on his gloves. Good evening, Mrs. Keene. He left before she found an answer. The latch clicked behind him. Martha hated the sound. She served supper as if nothing had happened. When Elias returned, she told him the kettle was hot and did not ask about the wagon. He sat at the table and watched her move. You missed supper, she said. I can see that. There are beans on the stove. He waited. Martha wiped a clean plate with a clean cloth. What did Voss say? Her hand stopped. I did not tell you he came. His boots leave a narrow heel mark. There is one by the door. She looked down. You notice too much. Sometimes. He said nothing worth repeating. Elias removed his coat and hung it on the peg. Was it about me? Martha opened the stove. That depends. Are you planning to demand payment for the latch? No. The shelf? No. The kindling? No. Then it was not about you. All right. That should have eased her. It did not. She set a bowl of beans on the table, harder than she meant to. Some broth spilled over the edge. Elias reached for the cloth. Martha caught it first. I have it. He released it. Again, no argument. Again, that quiet step backward. She wiped the table. He said men do not fix things for women without wanting something. Elias sat down. What do you want? She asked. Tonight. From me. Steam rose between them. A place to sleep until Saturday. That is all. No. Martha waited. He lifted his eyes. I want coffee in the morning. I want the livery owner to stop pretending his wagon wheel is not split through the hub, and I would like to know why the chair by the parlor window rocks only when you sit in it. Despite herself, she almost laughed. That is not an answer. It is the answer I have tonight. And tomorrow. I will answer tomorrow when it comes. She hated that answer because it was honest. Elias ate his beans. Martha sat across from him, though she had already eaten. The kitchen lamp burned low. After a while, Elias pushed his empty bowl aside. "Did your husband fix things?" he asked. Martha looked at him. "Sometimes." Before he left, he fixed whatever made him look needed. Elias nodded once. He did not claim he was different or ask her to believe him. He rose, washed his bowl, and placed it upside down beside the basin. At the doorway he paused. "I will not touch another thing in this house unless you ask." Martha looked at the straight shelf. "That is probably best." He went upstairs. The next morning she found the parlor chair where it always stood, still rocking, still uneven. Beside it, on the small table, she placed a cup of coffee. Elias found it first. He drank, then looked toward the kitchen. Martha was kneading biscuit dough with her back to him. "The chair," she said. A pause followed. "May I?" She pressed both hands into the dough. "Yes." He turned the chair over and began to work. Martha did not watch him. Not directly. Outside, across the street, Hiram Voss stood beneath the awning of the dry goods store. He watched enough for both of them. The chair took Elias less than 5 minutes. Martha stood in the kitchen doorway with flour on both hands. He had turned the chair upside down and was shaving a thin curl from one rear leg with his pocket knife. "You said one leg was short," she said. "No, one is long." "That sounds like the same problem." "It is not the same repair." He set the chair upright and pressed one hand against the back. It did not move. Martha sat and shifted her weight. The chair stayed firm. Elias closed his knife. "What do I owe you?" "One honest answer." Martha looked up. He nodded toward the cup she had left for him. "Did you put that coffee there because you wanted me to have it, or because you were paying for the chair?" She looked at the empty cup. "Does it matter?" "To me." Martha wiped flour from one wrist. "I wanted you to have it." Elias picked up the chair and returned it to its place by the window. "Then we are even." She should have told him that was not how debts worked. Instead, she sat on the chair again. It did not rock. By noon, Red Willow had decided Elias Grant was courting Martha Keene. No one asked either of them. The drummer brought the news from the barber shop. "They say he fixed your chair." Martha was rolling pie dough. "The town has survived another mystery." "They say he cuts your wood before breakfast." "It means he is hungry." The drummer leaned on the counter. "I have spent 30 years selling buttons to women who already own buttons. I know when people are buying one thing and hoping for another. Then the town should find work." The front door opened. Elias entered carrying a small paper sack. He stopped when he saw both of them looking at him. "Did I interrupt?" "Only your courtship," the drummer said. Martha dropped the rolling pin. It struck the counter with a hard wooden crack. Elias looked at the drummer, then at Martha. "I was not aware I had begun one." "Neither was I," Martha said. "Report from the porch," Martha told the drummer. He laughed his way outside. Elias set the sack on the counter. "Nails." "I did not ask for nails." "They are for the livery." "Then why are they in my kitchen?" "Because the livery owner is eating at Voss's hotel, and I did not want to carry them through his dining room." Martha picked up the rolling pin. "That is a poor reason." "It is the true one." He did not smile. That made her believe him. She returned to the dough. Elias stood there a moment longer. "Does the talk trouble you?" he asked. "Talk does not wash sheets or pay for flour." "That is not what I asked." It troubles me when people decide a woman must be waiting for a man simply because he sat in her chair. I did not sit in it. You fixed it, that is worse. This time he smiled. Only a little. She saw it and had to look down. Elias picked up the sack of nails. For what it is worth, I have not told anyone I am courting you. That is worth exactly what it cost. Yes, ma'am. He left by the back door. At supper, Martha gave him the largest slice of pie and told herself it was only fair. The next morning, Elias did not cut wood. Martha noticed before she noticed anything else. Only 3 pieces remained beside the stove. She had split wood for years, yet the empty yard made something inside her go quiet. She made biscuits. She burned the first pan. At 7, Elias came in carrying his tool case. His hair was damp from the pump, and there was fresh grease on his cuff. "You are late," Martha said. He looked toward the clock. "For breakfast." "For the wood." Elias set down his case. "You did not ask me to cut it." "I know. You told me not to touch things unless you asked." "I know what I told you." He waited. Martha opened the stove and moved a black biscuit from one side of the pan to the other. "The kindling is too wide," she said. Elias removed his coat. "I can fix that." She handed him the axe. It was the first task she gave him without asking the price. Neither spoke of it. That afternoon, Elias returned from the livery with a split across the palm of his right hand. Martha saw the blood when he reached for the water dipper. "Sit. It is shallow. Sit." He obeyed. She brought a bowl, clean cloth, and a strip torn from an old pillowcase. Elias rested his hand on the table while she washed away the grease. "You should have wrapped it at the livery." "I was finishing the wheel." "A wheel will not thank you for bleeding on it." "No." She wound the cloth around his palm. His hand was warm and still beneath hers. Elias watched her hands instead of her face. That made it harder. "Too tight?" she asked. "No." She tied the knot and released him. He flexed his fingers once. "Thank you. You paid for bandages with your room." "I thought supper and breakfast were included." "Do not argue with the woman holding the clean cloth." "Yes, ma'am." The kitchen door opened behind them. Hiram Voss stepped in without knocking. His gaze fell first on Elias' bandaged hand, then on Martha standing close beside him. Martha moved away. "I was looking for Mr. Grant," Hiram said. "You found him," Elias replied. "I have business to discuss." "Then discuss it." Hiram glanced at Martha, privately. Elias stayed seated. "Mrs. Keene owns the room." Something in Martha's chest shifted. Hiram's jaw tightened. "Very well. The railroad is expanding the freight yard in spring. My brother has secured the contract for wagon repair. We need a wheelwright." Elias looked at him without expression. "There is a shop behind my hotel," Hiram continued. "Dry roof, new stove, lodging included, steady pay through winter." Martha gathered the bloody water and carried it to the sink. She did not need to hear more. It was a good offer. Better than any work Elias could find by drifting from town to town. Better than sleeping in rented rooms and leaving every time a ticket told him to. "When?" Elias asked. "Start Monday." "My train leaves Saturday." "It need not." Martha's hand stopped over the basin. Hiram smiled. "I know men, Grant. A man buys a ticket because he expects nothing worth staying for. Sometimes a town makes a better offer." Elias looked at Martha's back. She felt it. "Good wages?" he asked. "Better than the livery can pay." "And the room?" "Free." Hiram said the word toward Martha. Elias rose. He was taller than Hiram, but his voice stayed level. No. Hiram blinked. You have not heard the amount. I heard enough. You would refuse steady work. I would refuse work tied to your opinion of where I sleep. The kindness left Hiram's face. You may regret choosing pride over sense. Elias opened the kitchen door. I am not the one who came into another person's house to buy a man away from her table. Hiram stepped outside. Elias closed the door behind him. The latch caught. Martha stood over the basin, looking at the water gone pale red around the cloth. You should have heard the amount, she said. No. It may have been good money. It probably was. You need work. Yes. Then why refuse before he finished? Elias looked at her. Because he wanted the refusal to hurt you. Martha tightened her grip on the edge of the sink. You do not know me well enough to protect me. I was not protecting you. What were you doing? Choosing what kind of man I am willing to work for. He picked up his coat with his uninjured hand. I am going back to the livery. With that hand. I only need to collect my pay. He opened the door. Martha spoke before he stepped through. Elias. He turned. She looked at the bandage, then at his face. There will be coffee when you come back. He nodded once. That evening, 2 depot men came for supper, though Hiram's dining room had empty seats. The next morning, a woman brought 6 clean napkins and asked about Keene House's public supper. Martha had planned no supper. By noon, 3 more people asked about it. Hiram had started the rumor. He meant to force her into failure. Martha stood beneath the faded sign, while townspeople passed on the boardwalk. Elias came up beside her. What is it? He asked. She looked at the missing letters above the porch. A supper, she said, Saturday night. Your train leaves Saturday afternoon. Yes. She kept her eyes on the sign. Then I suppose you will miss it. Elias looked toward the depot, where a westbound engine waited beyond the roofs. For the first time since he arrived, he did not answer at once. By Friday morning, everyone in Red Willow had heard about Martha Keene's Saturday supper. Half the town believed she had planned it for weeks. The other half believed she had planned it to keep Elias Grant from boarding his train. Martha believed neither half deserved breakfast. She stood in the pantry counting jars, 4 quarts of green beans, 2 jars of peaches, 1 sack of flour, enough coffee if the cattle buyers did not drink it as though winter depended on them. Elias leaned against the pantry door. How many are coming? 20 perhaps. You have seats for 12. I have benches. You have 1 bench. I can borrow another. From Voss. Martha turned. No. Elias nodded. Good. She set a jar on the shelf. You disapprove of him. I try not to waste that much thought. You refused steady work because of him. I refused his work. There is a difference. One is about him, one is about me. Martha looked at the shelves again. That was the trouble with Elias. He said plain things that took time to settle. She handed him a list. Go to the general store. I need sugar, salt, lamp oil, and 6 pounds of pork. He took the paper. This is an assigned task. Yes. Then I am allowed to do it. Do not become pleased with yourself. I will try. At the door he stopped. Anything else? Martha looked around the kitchen, the loose cupboard hinge, the cracked handle on the flour scoop, the back step that dipped on one side. Her eyes returned to him. No. Elias folded the list and put it in his pocket. She waited until he left before adding, "Come back for dinner." The door had already closed. She hoped he heard. At the general store, Elias found Hiram Voss beside the counter. Hiram was buying cigars. He held one between two fingers while the storekeeper wrapped the rest in brown paper. "Still taking orders from the widow?" Hiram asked. Elias handed Martha's list to the storekeeper. "6 pounds of pork," he said, "not too much fat." Hiram smiled. "Men are talking. They usually are. They say you turned down honest work because Mrs. Keene asked you to stay." "She did not." "No. No." Hiram watched him. "Then perhaps she has not asked yet." Elias picked up a sack of sugar and checked the stitching along the bottom. Hiram stepped closer. "You should understand something about Martha. She knows how to make a man feel needed." Elias set down the sugar. "Do you speak from experience?" The storekeeper stopped wrapping the cigars. Hiram's face changed. Only for a breath. Then the mild smile returned. "I have watched men carry wood to that house for years, fix windows, haul coal, share her table, they all leave. Maybe they had trains. Maybe they learned what her husband learned." The room went quiet. Elias turned fully toward him. Hiram did not step back. "She will tell you he stole from her," Hiram said. "She will not tell you why a man might run." Elias' injured hand rested near his coat pocket. The bandage Martha had tied was still clean. "What are you hoping I will do?" he asked. "Nothing. Your train leaves tomorrow whether I speak or not." "That is true. Then we understand each other." "No." Elias picked up the sugar again. "I understand that you came here to make a woman's old shame useful to you." The storekeeper looked down. Hiram's eyes hardened. "You are a passing man, Grant. Be careful what enemies you choose in a town where you have no name." Elias lifted the sack. "A name does not improve because it stays in one place." He collected Martha's supplies and walked out. When he returned to Keene House, 2 women were in the kitchen peeling potatoes. Martha stood between them, cutting carrots into even pieces. The room smelled of onions, coffee, and damp wool. One woman glanced at Elias, then at the pork under his arm, then at Martha. Martha put down the knife. Mrs. Bell and Mrs. Turner offered to help. "We heard you had taken on more than you could manage," Mrs. Bell said. Martha picked up the knife again. "I did not say that." "No, dear, you never do." The kindness in her voice had soft edges and a sharp point. Elias set the supplies on the counter. Mrs. Turner noticed his bandage. "Oh, Mr. Grant, Martha has been tending you." "It was a cut." "Yes, of course." Martha chopped harder. Mrs. Bell smiled at Elias. "Will you be here for the supper?" "My train leaves before it starts." The knife stopped. Martha did not look up. Mrs. Turner exchanged a glance with Mrs. Bell. "What a shame," she said. "It is a train," Martha replied, "not a funeral." "No one said it was." "No, you only lowered your voice as though there were a coffin in the room." Mrs. Bell's mouth opened. Elias moved to the kitchen table and began unpacking the supplies. He did not defend Martha. He did not laugh. He did not try to soften what she had said. He gave her the dignity of letting the words stand. The women left before noon. They took their potato peelings with them, though Martha had asked them to leave them for the hens. When the front door closed, Martha put both hands on the counter. "You could have told them you had changed your ticket." Elias looked at her. "I have not." She nodded. "I know." He waited. Martha carried the knife to the basin and washed it. You could have let them wonder. That would have been dishonest. Yes. She dried the blade. I know. Elias removed the pork from its paper. Voss spoke to me at the store. Martha's shoulders stiffened. What did he say? That men leave you. She folded the towel over the same spot twice. He is not wrong. He also said your husband had a reason. Martha placed the towel down. For a long moment, the kitchen held only the sound of the stove. My husband had many reasons, she said. Most of them wore my shoes thin. Elias stayed quiet. Martha sat at the table. He wanted a larger hotel, a dining room with brass lamps, a sign people could read from the depot. I wanted to save before borrowing. She rubbed one thumb along a scratch in the wood. He said caution was another word for fear, so he borrowed without telling me. When that was not enough, he took what I had saved. Elias pulled out the chair across from her, but did not sit. May I? Martha nodded. He sat. He lost it in a card room 2 towns east, she said. I learned that later. He did not leave because I asked too much. He left because there was nothing left to take and he could not bear to be seen after failing. Elias looked at the table. Did he come back? No. Did you want him to? Martha's eyes moved toward the repaired latch. For the first year. She swallowed. Not because I loved him, because I wanted him to admit what he had done. I thought if he stood in this room and named it, I would stop feeling foolish. Did you? Stop. Yes. Most days. Elias rested his bandaged hand on the table. My father had a wheel shop, he said. Martha looked at him. He put my name on the sign before I was old enough to choose the work. Grant and Son. The letters were painted red. You became a wheelwright. I was good at it. That is not the same as wanting it. No. He ran one finger along the edge of his bandage. When he died, every customer looked at me as if I had promised to become him. Same shop, same hours, same chair by the stove. I lasted 2 years. Then you left. Yes. Without telling anyone. I sold the shop first. That is something. Not to the people who wanted me to stay. Martha studied him. Do you regret it? Some mornings. And the other mornings. I wake somewhere, no one has decided who I am. The word stayed between them. Martha understood more than she wanted to. A person could leave because he was selfish. A person could also leave because staying had begun to feel like disappearing. Why west? She asked. Elias touched the place inside his coat where the ticket rested. There is a wheelworks in Oregon. They offered me a bench. Steady work. Yes. A room. Yes. Better pay than the livery. Much better. Martha stood. She began moving jars on the shelf, though none needed moving. You should go. Elias did not answer. You bought the ticket before you came here, she continued. You made a choice, a good one. Yes. She shifted the beans beside the peaches. You should not throw away a future because a door latch needed fixing. I have not said I would. Martha closed the cupboard. The click sounded too sharp. No, she said, you have not. That afternoon, they worked side by side without speaking much. Martha mixed dough for 6 loaves. Elias carried the heavy pans to the warming shelf. She cut apples. He peeled them slowly because of his injured hand. At one point, their shoulders touched. Neither moved away at once. Near dusk, Elias went outside and returned with 2 long boards from the livery. What are those? A borrowed bench. You found one. I made one. Martha ran her hand over the smooth seat. You were working at the livery. They had scrap wood. What do I owe you? Elias looked tired. Not angry, just tired. Martha. It was the first time he had used her name. She felt it more than she should have. What? She asked. Let one thing be given. Her fingers stayed on the bench. The room behind them was warm. Bread cooled near the stove. Outside, evening gathered along the street. Martha looked at the place where he had joined the boards. Strong, plain, built to hold more weight than it showed. All right, she said. Elias nodded. Neither thanked the other. After supper, Martha climbed the stairs to leave clean towels outside the guest rooms. Elias' door stood open. His leather case rested on the bed. Closed. Packed. His rolled coat lay beside it. On top of the coat was the westbound ticket. Martha stood in the hall with the towels pressed against her chest. Below her, the repaired latch clicked as someone entered the house. For one foolish second, she hoped it was Elias coming back. Then she remembered he had never said he was staying. Saturday began before dawn, with Martha standing in the upstairs hall and looking at a packed leather case. Elias' door was still open. His coat lay rolled across the bed. The westbound ticket rested on top, pale in the gray morning light. She had not meant to look. She had come to leave fresh towels. Martha set them on the chair and went downstairs before Elias returned. In the kitchen, she lit the stove, measured coffee, and cracked eggs into a bowl. Every movement landed where it should. Cup, spoon, pan, cloth. Only once did she stop. Her hand hovered over the second coffee cup. Then she filled it. Elias came in through the back door carrying an armful of wood. He had shaved, and his shirt collar was clean. The bandage on his palm had been changed. You packed, Martha said. He placed the wood beside the stove. Yes. The train leaves at 4. Yes. She beat the eggs until foam gathered at the edge of the bowl. You will want breakfast. I usually do. Martha poured the eggs into the pan. Elias sat at the kitchen table. The repaired chair by the parlor window was empty, but the bench he had built stood against the wall, ready for strangers who would come after he was gone. Martha served him eggs and biscuits. Neither spoke for several minutes. At last Elias said, The livery owner offered me work through the month. Her fork touched her plate. You told me you had a place in Oregon. I do. And better pay. Yes. Then there is no choice. There is always a choice. Martha looked at him. That is easy to say when both choices are good. Elias broke a biscuit in half. One is work I planned for, the other is work I found. That still sounds simple. No, he said, it sounds short. She rose and carried her plate to the basin. Behind her, Elias said, I do not want to make a promise just because leaving hurts. Martha gripped the plate. He continued quietly. A promise made in a hard hour can feel warm. Then the hour passes, and two people are left carrying words neither one had time to understand. She turned. Who asked you for a promise? No one. Then do not speak as if I am waiting for one. Elias met her eyes. I know better than that. The answer struck deeper than an argument would have. Martha dried the plate and put it away. Your coffee is getting cold, she said. After breakfast, Elias carried tables from the front room and moved chairs against the walls. Martha let him work because there was too much to do, and because refusing him would have required more strength than she had. At 10, Mrs. Bell arrived with 2 pies. At 11, The drummer returned from the depot with news that 12 rail workers planned to attend. By noon, every surface in the kitchen held something: bread, beans, pork, pickled beets, coffee grounds, clean plates stacked in careful towers. Elias moved among it without taking over. He lifted what Martha pointed to. He stopped when she said stop. When Mrs. Bell asked him to fix a loose handle on the serving tray, he looked to Martha first. She nodded. That small act hurt too. Near one, Martha found him alone on the back porch, brushing mud from his boots. His case stood beside the door. "You are leaving early," she said. "I need to collect my pay and take the case to the depot." She looked at the worn leather straps. "Of course." Elias rose. For a moment, they stood too close in the narrow porch space. Martha noticed the clean line of his jaw, the tired place beneath his eyes, and the loose thread near his collar. Her fingers nearly lifted to tuck it away. She closed them instead. "The supper will go well," he said. "You cannot know that. I know your coffee. That is not enough to fill a room. It brought me back to the kitchen every night." Martha looked down. Elias picked up his case. "Thank you for the room. You paid for it. Thank you anyway." She wanted to say something that would not ask him to stay. Nothing came. So she opened the back door. Elias stepped into the yard. At the gate, he turned. Martha was still holding the door. His mouth moved as if he might speak. Then he touched the brim of his hat and walked toward the depot. Martha closed the door. The repaired latch caught on the first try. At 3, the front room began to fill. The borrowed lamps were lit. The new bench held 4 depot workers and 1 child. Steam clouded the kitchen windows. People who had never entered Keene House before stood beneath its faded sign and called the place warm. Martha moved from table to table with a coffee pot. She did not look toward the clock. At 3:45, Hiram Voss arrived. He wore his best black coat and carried no appetite. "I came to wish you success," he said. "You can do that from the porch." Several people heard. Hiram smiled as if she had made a joke. "Surely there is room for one more." "There is always room for a paying guest." He placed a coin on the table. Martha picked it up and dropped it into her apron pocket. "Sit where you can find space." Hiram chose the center of the room. He spoke to everyone. He praised the pork, the bread, the lamps, and the fine effort Martha had made. Each compliment sounded like a man describing a child's first attempt at grown work. Martha kept pouring coffee. At 4:05, the station bell rang. The sound reached the room through the walls. Martha's hand tightened around the pot handle. No one else seemed to notice. Then Hiram lifted his cup. "A toast," he said. Conversation thinned. Martha looked at him. "To Keene House," Hiram continued. "May it remain standing after those who repaired it have moved on." Silence spread from table to table. Mrs. Bell stared into her plate. The old drummer set down his spoon. Martha placed the coffee pot on the nearest table. "You paid for supper," she said, "not a speech." Hiram leaned back. "I meant no harm. Everyone knows Mr. Grant's train is leaving." The station whistle blew. Long, low final. Martha felt the sound inside her ribs. This is the moment when pride and hope pull in opposite directions. Stay with her now, because what happens after that whistle will tell Martha whether kindness was only passing through, or whether someone has finally chosen to remain. The floor trembled faintly as the westbound train began to move. Hiram looked toward the window. "There it goes," he said softly. Martha did not. She picked up the coffee pot. Her hand was steady again. Who needs warming? No one answered. She went to the first table and filled a cup that was already full. Coffee ran into the saucer. Mrs. Bell reached for a cloth. Martha took it first. I have it. The train whistle sounded again, farther west. Hiram rose. I warned you. Martha set down the cloth. The room seemed smaller now, too many faces, too much pity waiting to be offered. She looked at Hiram. You warned me that a man with a ticket might use it. That required no wisdom. A few heads lifted. Hiram's smile faded. Martha went on. You wanted his leaving to make me small. It does not. The words cost her, but she kept her back straight. He paid what he owed. He worked where he was asked. He left when he said he would. That is more honesty than some men bring to a whole life. Hiram's face hardened. Then the front door opened. The latch clicked cleanly. Cold air moved through the room. Martha turned. Elias stood on the threshold without his leather case. His hat was in one hand. The westbound train gave one last faint call beyond the edge of town. Elias looked past every face in the room until he found Martha. The train left, he said. Hiram stared at him. You missed it. Elias stepped inside and closed the door. No. He crossed the room slowly. When he reached Martha, he removed the folded ticket from his coat and placed it beside her cup. I let it go. No one spoke. Martha looked at the ticket, then at the man standing before her. For the first time since her husband had walked out, someone had left a door open behind him and still chosen to come back through it. The room held its breath. Martha looked at the folded ticket beside her cup. One corner was dark from Elias' thumb. The railroad stamp ran across the middle, and beneath it was the word westbound. A page wrote out. Unused. Hiram Voss recovered first. You threw away a good position for this, he asked. Elias did not look at him. I did not say what I threw away. You had work in Oregon. I still know how to make wheels. Hiram gave a short laugh. And where will you do that? In her kitchen. A chair scraped. The livery owner stood near the stove, broad shoulders bent beneath the low ceiling. My old storage shed has a stove and a workbench, he said. Roof needs patching. Grant can use it through winter if he earns his keep. One of the depot men lifted his cup. Rail yard breaks enough wagon wheels to keep 2 men busy. Another man nodded. 3 once spring freight starts. The room began speaking again, not loudly, just enough to show that Hiram no longer owned the silence. Martha watched Elias. He had not asked anyone to defend him. He had not made a speech. He stood with his hat in one hand and let the choice be what it was. Hiram looked around the room. You are all being taken in by a passing man. Martha picked up the ticket. No, she said, a passing man would be on that train. Hiram's face went still. Martha crossed to the front door and opened it. Cold air entered. You have finished your supper. He stared at her. For years, Hiram had spoken to Martha as though his larger hotel gave him a larger place in the world. He had offered advice she had not asked for and pity she had not needed. Now 20 people watched him search for one more cutting thing to say. He found none. Hiram put on his hat and walked out. Martha closed the door. The latch caught softly. For a moment, no one moved. Then the old drummer raised his coffee cup. To doors that work. A laugh broke across the room. It was not cruel, it was relief. Martha shook her head, but she smiled as she returned to the table. Mrs. Bell moved over to make room on the new bench. The depot men began arguing about which freight wagon needed repair first. Elias remained beside Martha. She still held the ticket. "You missed your train," she said. "No. You let it leave." "Yes." "Why?" The room was noisy again, but his answer came quietly. "Because I was halfway to the platform when I realized I was walking toward a life I had chosen before I knew this one was possible." Martha folded the ticket along its old crease. "This one. The work at the livery, the shed, this town." He paused. "You." Her fingers stopped. Elias did not reach for her. He did not ask her to answer in front of everyone. "I am not asking you to make the choice worth it," he said. "I made it myself." Martha looked down at the ticket. "What if you regret it? Then I will tell you the truth. That is not much comfort." "No." He waited. "It is all I can promise tonight." Martha placed the ticket in his palm and closed his fingers over it. "Then eat before Mrs. Bell gives away your chair." He sat beside her at the end of the table. Martha served him pork, bread, and beans. His coffee had gone cold, so she brought a fresh cup without asking what he owed. He noticed. He said nothing. That helped. The supper lasted until the lamps burned low. People carried plates to the kitchen and moved chairs without being told. Mrs. Turner wrapped the last piece of pie for the station keeper. The drummer found his rose soap crushed beneath his own hat and blamed no one but himself. When the final guest left, Martha stood in the front room among empty cups and crooked chairs. Elias carried the new bench back against the wall. "You should sleep," he said. "So should you. I need to take my case from the depot." She looked at him. "You left it there." "I wanted my hands free when I came back." Martha picked up 2 cups. "You were not certain I would let you through the door." "No." "And you came anyway." "Yes." She took the cups to the kitchen. Elias followed with the coffee pot. At the basin Martha washed while he dried. It was slow work, ordinary work. Their shoulders touched once, then again. Neither apologized. After a while, Martha said, "The end room costs $2 a week." Elias dried the same cup twice. "You are letting me stay." "I am renting you a room." "For how long?" "1 week at a time." He set the cup on the shelf. "That seems fair." "And the kindling is part of the price." "I suspected it might be." She looked at him. "The roof is not." "I did not mention the roof." "You looked at it yesterday." "I look at many things." "Do not look at my roof." His mouth moved. "Yes, ma'am." 3 days later, Martha asked him to patch it. Winter settled over Red Willow. Elias took the shed behind the livery and cleared out broken harness, rusted rims, and a nest made by some animal that had left before rent came due. He repaired the stove pipe. He set his tools along the wall. By the end of the first week, the sound of his hammer carried across the yard from morning until supper. He still paid for his room. Martha still counted every coin. But she stopped counting every piece of wood he brought inside. Some mornings she left coffee on the bench by the back door. Some mornings he found the cup empty because she had sat there waiting for him without deciding to call it waiting. He learned that she liked the heel of the bread when it was still warm. She learned he skipped breakfast when a wheel troubled him. On those mornings, a biscuit appeared in his tool case wrapped in cloth. Neither mentioned it. People continued talking. For a while, they said Elias had stayed because Martha needed a man. Then they watched her tell him not to move her flour barrel without asking. They said Martha had trapped him with a room and a hot meal. Then they watched him pay on Monday morning, even when she forgot to ask. By January, the town grew bored with deciding which one had saved the other. That was closer to the truth. A person is not truly chosen when the other road has been closed. The choice becomes real when the road stays open and someone turns back anyway. That quiet truth is why this channel keeps telling stories like theirs. One Sunday evening, Martha found the westbound ticket on the kitchen table. Elias had flattened it beneath the sugar bowl. She held it up when he entered. "You keep leaving this where I can see it. I keep forgetting where I put it." "You do not forget tools." "It is not a tool." "No, it is money you wasted." He removed his coat. "Do you want me to hide it?" Martha looked at the faded stamp. "No." "Do you want to keep it?" She almost said she had no use for it. Instead, she opened the small drawer where she kept spare keys, thread, and the button from her father's old coat. She placed the ticket inside and shut the drawer. Elias watched. Martha touched the handle once. "You can have it back if you leave." He stood very still. "And if I do not?" "Then it will stay there." He nodded. "All right." That was the nearest they came to a promise that winter. It was enough. By spring, Elias' shed had become a proper wheel shop. The livery owner painted Grant over the door, but left room on the board beneath it. Martha noticed the blank space. She did not ask about it. One evening, Elias came into the kitchen carrying a small paper parcel. "What is that?" she asked. "A hinge." "For what?" "The cupboard." "I did not ask you to fix it." "No." He placed the parcel on the table. "I bought the hinge. I am asking permission." Martha looked at the cupboard door, which had sagged since before he arrived. "When?" "Tomorrow." "After breakfast?" "Yes, ma'am." She set another plate on the table. Outside, a westbound train whistled beyond town. The sound was clear in the warm evening. Once, it would have made her listen for footsteps leaving. Now she listened to the wheel shed door close. A moment later, Elias entered the kitchen, wiping grease from his hands with a worn cloth. He shut the back door behind him, and the latch caught. Martha pointed to the chair across from hers. "Your supper is getting cold." Elias sat. The train called once more in the distance, then faded beyond Red Willow. Martha lifted her fork. 2 plates rested on the table. Neither place was empty.